you look great without all those vanity filters.
That's my dog.
Well, you should have her host every time.
Yeah, I'll talk to her about that. Enjoy the show.
Hi Smarties! We're outside on a beautiful, sunny, cool October day in Texas. Drop me a comment. Who are your favorite movie or book detectives? Let's talk about Return of the Thin Man, edited by Richard Lehman and Julie M. Rivet, granddaughter of Dashiell Hammett. First, if we talked about every difference between the Thin Man screenplays versus the films, it would take hours. So I'll share some of the differences here, but not all of my notes. And then I'll share a picture of my notes at the end, so you can pause and read them if you want further details. To watch the movies for yourself, you can find them streaming for free or low cost to buy or rent at places like Tubi, Roku, HBO, or Prime Video. But some of the movies wouldn't stream correctly, so my husband got the Blu-ray set at barnesandnoble.com for less than like $10 a movie. Here are some minor Easter eggs. Asta is now male, obviously to keep continuity with the first movie. 2. An hour and 23 minutes into Another Thin Man, there's a cameo by Shemp Howard, unlisted in the credits. 3. Face Pepler is a boyfriend to a victim in the novel, but appears in the Thin Man movie briefly and in Another Thin Man as one of Nick's friendly criminal acquaintances. The border collie in Another Thin Man is changed to an Irish wolfhound. There are plenty more fun details that you can pick out for yourself when you watch and read them. For clarity, Hammett's only Thin Man novel is The Thin Man, which was originally a reference to the victim in that story, but the moniker became attached to Nick Charles, the detective. Today, we're talking about the second and third movies, which were written by Hammett, but they weren't novels. Return of the Thin Man. Y'all, these are the screen stories written by Hammett and the married team Albert Hackett and Francis Goodrich. I gotta be honest, it's so fun reading that style because it's very visually immersive. It was also cool to see parenthetical notes for direction, like Dancer, not far away, sees Nora take the nickel. If necessary, he can have overheard some of the conversation. The introductions for the stories are rich with historical information, including part of a contract that Hammett signed with MGM. Differences between screenplays and movies are largely discussed in the afterword. I highly recommend reading the headnotes and afterwards, even though it's sad when we learn that Hammett spent more and more time in Hollywood without his wife, with his pants down, and ended up with gonorrhea, and alcoholism led to neurosis and pituitary hypofunction. Anywho, Return of the Thin Man contains 2 full screenplays for After the Thin Man and Another Thin Man. It has lots of behind-the-scenes information and an 8-page Thin Man story by Hammett that was never adapted. It makes me sad that the screenwriters, Hackett and Goodrich, were bored with the Charles's endless wit and tired of struggling with Hammett's complicated situations, according to Julie M. Rivet. I understand not wanting to rely on him to write the screenplays anymore because of his failing health, but Nick and Nora are golden, in my opinion. They set this high standard for a friendly marriage. They laugh, they protect each other, they flirt with each other. They're the kind of couple that we need, not just in movies, but for real. Happily married people who bring fun with them into every room instead of bitterness and melodrama. They're the opposite of The Needlers by Amy Poehler and Seth Meyers.
The couple that should be divorced.
Regarding the 6 movies, let's talk about the F word. Formulaic. Now, as y'all know, I don't know nothing about nothing, but my husband and I love what you might call the formula of the Thin Man franchise. Nick and Nora solve a crime. They meet quirky and sometimes awful people who make Nick and Nora's relationship stand out as the ideal marriage in a way. And at the end, all the suspects are gathered together and Nick tells everyone how the crime was committed and solved. It looks like Hammett tailored his style to fit the movies. The reason I say this is the tone of the screenplays. The crime in the first sequel is less complicated than in the novel. And to me, the novel was punctuated subtly by humor, whereas the movies flaunt a more comic, lighthearted feeling. But I like the movies, it's not a complaint. Lessons for writers from the screenplays. As a writer, something important to learn from this screenplay format is that the lack of dialogue tags doesn't really matter. What I mean is, there's often no verb, no adverb like he said slowly or she hesitantly asked me. As long as we know who is talking and we know the general feeling of the conversation, the reader can imagine how the dialogue sounds, and cutting out the dialogue tags saves a lot of time. That's something I want to clean up in my 2-part mystery. Of course, not every dialogue tag has to be deleted, but there only needs to remain enough to maintain clarity. The screenplay format might also be a good argument for something controversial. Telling, not showing. I know, generally in books we want to show why characters are the way they are, and let the reader understand the story and characters through action instead of just descriptions. But it saves so much time when the screenplay said things like, the next to Catherine in point of age is Aunt Lucy, Catherine's cousin, a tottering old lady whose only interest is her accumulating years. I think on occasion it's fun to be this blunt. The reader can literally picture this person and hear what conversations she might be having without the author having to show it. After The Thin Man. I gotta admit, in the film adaptation, the criminal is super obvious, especially because of the casting choice. But the screenplay and the film both throw a lot of red herrings at us to throw us off the scent during the sequence leading up to the crime. One huge change compared to the novel is how Nora takes a major role, partly because the crime involves her relatives. In Hammett's novel, it's clear that Nick adores her and she's important to the story, but she's much more active in the movies. And in the novel, some police officers are great, whereas some are presented as violent or incompetent, and I wondered if Hammett himself had conflicting feelings about working alongside police when he was at Pinkerton Detective Agency. In After the Thin Man, this negative view of law enforcement is turned up in a comedic way. For example, the sequence when an officer causes much calamity by shooting his own reflection in the midst of a scuffle at Dancers Club. Another comedic aspect that the movies rely on is Asta's behavior. In the Thin Man novel, Asta, who's female, has recurring cute habits like smelling Nick's feet and curling up with him to sleep. But in the sequels, Asta gets even more of the spotlight, pulling on a leash, leading Nick and Nora to clues, and hiding under furniture during fights. As somebody who likes dogs, I do enjoy that aspect, but it's a reminder of how much more cuteness the movies added to the dark comedy framework that Hammett's novel had built. To be fair, the audience at those times needed some laughter, some lightness, as they recovered from the Great Depression and then were plunged into the Second World War. Let's gossip for a minute. One benefit of the written screenplay is that it doesn't have that garish flapper musical break in the beginning of the story. Am I right? Look, I love big band music, but honestly, the song adds nothing to the story. It's obvious that the musical break was meant to cheer up the audience, sort of following the fad of movies that featured breakout hits for singers who were just starting out. And if you can get a song stuck in the audience's mind, like a rooster crow, they're more likely to remember your movie. Very clever. Even though Nora's family drives me nuts, they're so snobby, sometimes one of them says something sensible. Nobody knows what they are doing. The whole country is full of incompetence and scoundrels nowadays. Am I right? Trigger warning. Personally, when I'm reading this older lingo, old terms for females like broad, or when the detective said the dame better not get hysterical, the old phrases don't bother me. But if you're very sensitive to antiquated slang terms, then you won't like the movies and you won't like this collection because the screenplays are the movies. And 90 years ago, they used a lot of terms that would probably get you canceled today, at least from YouTube, where Deep Humor and his viewers discovered they allow very realistic AI snuff films. But don't worry, YouTube says they're going to protect your kids by selling their metadata and pictures of adult driver's licenses to data brokers. 2025 is insane. Anywho, the climactic revelatory scene in After the Thin Man is changed. In Hammett's screenplay, Lum Key slips outside to catch Nora from the window, but a much simpler rescue occurs in the movie when Lum Key throws his hat so Nick is able to apprehend the criminal. In the film, there's some funny poking at the censorship agency in moments when Nick and Nora kiss, and Nora says, "It's alright, we're married." I'd say there are at least 3 major changes to the characteristics of the main cast. 1. While the Charleses do have fun in the book and Hammett's 2 screenplays, all of the movies turn up their flirting and playfulness. 2. The films make the lawyers more goofy as opposed to being intelligent foils, and the movie police are less competent, except Lieutenant Abrams, who stays likable, funny, and frustrated in the screenplays and the films. 3. On screen, Nora is more adamant about Nick taking cases and involving herself in solving them, which is why he locks her in a closet and puts her in the wrong taxi. To me, the biggest change of the story is the ending. Instead of having the mystery begin with the unaliving of Pedro, he becomes a victim near the very end of the movie, after which Nick and Abrams bring all the suspects together in the classic Thin Man movie method. A final thought on After the Thin Man, Asta does not pee on people in the movie, but this is a repeat joke in the screenplay. Apparently in Hollywood it was against regulation at the Production Code Administration. I'm trying really hard not to roll my eyes. Bonjour. Number one, as always, this video is not sponsored, so if there are commercials, that's not my choice. I'm sorry. Number two, check out the Drunken Fish Writers Group podcast for more literary fun. The podcast is also not sponsored. Another Thin Man, regarding the screenplay. The story opens with Nora on the phone, but the movie changes her conversation, which I'll discuss in a minute. Hammett writes this about how the Charles's 1-year-old son sees his parents. He ordinarily regards them with the same sort of mild curiosity or tolerant boredom with which he regards the rest of the world. Does that not sound like an ISTJ or INTJ in the making? On page 168, this is how Hammett describes the detectives who show up. These are well-trained men who go to work immediately, with a minimum of noises and confusion. This is a rare compliment for Hammett. He usually pokes fun at the police. I really believe that Hammett probably felt the same way about police as my brother Michael does. I think Hammett had some bad interactions with them, but some of them were wonderful and professional people, and he probably thought highly of those few individuals. Regarding the movie, the beginning establishes a comic vibe, with delivery men handling the Charles's luggage very roughly, to the point of breaking some things. I wonder if this is a training film for FedEx. Anywho, in the screenplay, Nora is on the phone telling friends they can't meet up because they're going to visit Colonel McVeigh. In the movie, Nora is on the phone to plan a night out with friends, and she tries telling Colonel McVeigh they can't visit him. It's interesting that Nora has the first lines of dialogue in both the screenplay and the film, showing that Hammett and MGM were aware of Myrna Loy's popularity with the audience. Nora picks the Colonel's pocket for the liquor cabinet key, which does not happen in the screenplay. Lois's wolfhound stands and puts his paws on Nick's shoulders, which is important for the end of the story. The screenplay doesn't have this scene, so the dog's habit of greeting people that way isn't used as foreshadowing like it is in the movie. The assistant DA, Van Slag, isn't likable in the screenplay or the movie, but he's more confident in the movie. On the page, his character vacillates between a wannabe alpha and a confused shy vibe. Shortly after Horn becomes the second victim, Mrs. Bellum claims to be Lois's real mother, which isn't in Hammett's version. Honestly, I didn't like that detail, but it does cast more shade and complicate matters, which makes it harder for the movie audience to solve the crime. At the 1 hour and 3 minute mark, there's an amazing dance sequence. On the Blu-ray, it's chapter 23. In the screenplay, Nick breaks up the men ogling Nora by telling her he'll hurt her boyfriend who walks with a limp. The men all carefully stride away to show that nobody there has a limp. Whereas in the movie, Nick moves aside the men and tells Nora she's gonna get in trouble for leaving the house while she's sick. And she says, "I won't stay in quarantine. I don't care who catches it." Then all the men leave the table. In the movie, the mystery about their new nanny is developed more, which to me made a little more sense. To be honest, I could relate to Freddie's nervousness regarding his writing. In both the screenplay and the film, he admits he's writing a play, but he doesn't want to talk too much about it because it's not done yet. And that's how it really feels when you're writing something. The only reason I'm happy to talk about my unpublished 2-part mystery is because it gives me accountability to finish the revising process as soon as possible. It was cute seeing Freddie look nervous when Nick reenacts part of the crime, and he tells Freddie that this might help him write his big finish. Instead of ending with a bitter quote from Lois, the movie ends with humor by Nick telling Nora that they need a rest from their so-called quiet weekend in the country. Sequel to The Thin Man. Wow, what a rush. This 8-page story felt like a second draft. Very well written, not sloppy like a first draft, but passionless. 2 things in particular made this less enjoyable for me. First, Nora hardly shows up. Second, seeing Nick bribe people is quirky and funny, but I don't know if his faithful fans would have liked that. It seemed like a lazy method to reveal the villain, rather than showcasing Nick's deductive skill. The sequence leading up to the crime almost felt like a repeat. It is very similar to the sequence in After the Thin Man, where the movie shows that the victim is being tailed by multiple people who have a grudge against him. Honestly, in the short story, I figured out who the criminal was because of his absence from that sequence. So yes, the story lacks passion in its current state, but if the project had taken off, I'm sure that Hammett and Hackett and Goodrich would have polished it, made it more intriguing, and added excellent dialogue just like they always did. In conclusion, one reason to rewatch the movies and reread the novel and the screenplays is, of course, to notice more of the nuance and little clues, as is the case in revisiting any sleuth stories. But 2 other draws are the comedy and Nick and Nora's dynamic. By the way, I found a good summary of Another Thin Man at giraffeboards.com. Have you ever wondered how Nick and Nora met? Pick up Before the Thin Man by Christopher Allen, and feel free to watch my video review of his book. Okay, Smarties, who's your favorite movie or book detective? Let's remember together, compassion is love plus action. Thank you for watching and have a great day. Watermelon, watermelon. While contrasting the screenplays with the films, I made a lot more mental notes than physical notes. But if you're interested in these nerdy physical notes, you're welcome to press pause.